I know you hear me. Like, I know you hear the voice. Like, look at me. I know you hear my voice. She sounds, You get what I'm saying? Anyways, now that we got a new mic, I say we're gonna hit 100 subs by the end of the month. God willing, we hit 100 subs by the end of the month. And hopefully you guys can support me. And yeah, thank you for watching. Anyways, let's get into the flipping video. So, the story of one of the greatest MCs of all time begins with the last moments of his old life as King Great on his deathbed. He ends up closing his eyes to see a white light, and turns out he was just given birth to. A couple months pass, and as his dad throws him in the air and catches him, ends up bumping his knee onto the door. Then he begins to cry and his mum scolds his dad, takes him back and then begins to use healing magic on a kid. Then he clocks, this world has magic. At the start of chapter 2, he ends up learning to crawl and is gassed. With this newfound ability, when he's put in the crib, he jumps out and crawls to the room where his mum has her books and begins to read everything. He finds out that he lives in the continent of Daikathan, and Daikathan is made up of 3 kingdoms. The kingdom of elves, Eleanor, the kingdom of humans, Sapin, and the underground kingdom of dwarves, Darv. He also realizes this world is way more undeveloped than his old one, but to be fair, these men have magic, so they really have no need for certain technology. Arthur also clocks that the key he used in his old world is similar to the mana, but unlike ki, which existed within oneself and was predetermined since birth, mana was present everywhere. He also learns that the power to control mana is largely genetic and that about 1 in 100 possess it. The 2 most common methods are augmenting and conjuring. Augmenters enhance their bodies with mana, allowing them to possess insane speed, strength, defense, and agility, but their weakness lies in their limited range. Conjurers emit mana to the outside world, allowing them to bend their surroundings to their will. I've read most of this, and I can't lie, but this mana thing, ether is where it's at. But you guys don't need to know too much about that for now, at least. Unless you start going deep into it. For now, just leave that be. Anyways, he reads that to have mana, he needs to establish a mana core, which sounds similar to a key center which he generated in his old life. So he attempts to do so, and as he's about to succeed, his mum comes through smelling that absolute stench within his diaper. And the former king admits that in his focus he may have ended up soiling himself. 2 years later, Arthur knows how to walk and ends up spending a lot of time in the study trying to form his mana core. His mum picks him up and decides it's time for a little nap. So he ends up using his puss in boots out technique and convinces his mum to let him in. As his mum puts him down in a study, his mum goes to check on his dad. As she goes outside and talks to his dad, a loud boom! And turns out the study exploded, and instantly his dad gets behind his mum, protecting her from the explosion. The mum then says, "Art's still in there," and without a second's hesitation, he gets active and gets in the house and into the study, then witnesses Arthur in the air with a fully formed mana core. Another year passes, and his mum teaches him to read and write, while his dad does basic body workouts with him. His dad also teaches him how to use the sword during this time. Arthur does further research and finds out that in this world, strength is measured by the color of his mana core. The mana core starts off black due to impurities, and as your mana core becomes purer, the stronger you get. It starts off black, red, orange, yellow, silver, white, and each stage is split into 3 shades: dark, solid, and light. Reynolds, Arthur's father, thinks that he's holding Art back, and they end up asking Art if he wants to go to Zaus where his abilities will get tested. And he says, why don't we all come along? And that's what they end up doing. And they all prepare to go on a 3-week journey. They also end up going with the twin horns made up of 3 augmenters, 2 conjurers, who his mum and dad used to be a part of when they used to be adventurers. The twin horns consist of Angela, Adam, Helen, Durden, and last but not least, Jasmine. You can forget all those names except for Jasmine Blamesworth. She'll be important later on. Adam wants to see how good Art is, so they end up sparring, and boy does Art not disappoint. He enters his stance and is doing stuff they ain't never seen before. And Art actually catches Adam off guard by getting behind him, but due to him not being used to moving in an infant's body, he ends up slipping, and Adam sees this as an opening and attacks. then scolds Reynolds for creating a monster. Art ends up having to explain how he moved, and Jasmine tries to replicate it and gets the premise of it, unlike Adam, who inserts himself into a tree with his attempt. It's been several days now, and the gang end up getting surrounded by bandits, and the twin horns fly into action. Jasmine's really boxing out here shit, and got also instant levels of weaving. Cut to Reynolds, we see him plow through multiple bandits with ease, but one gets behind him, but Helen shoots that arrow straight through his cranium, taking that boy out for good, and Reynolds gives her a thankful nod. It then cuts to the carriage being destroyed as Reynolds gets blasted back by a spell, and as Art expects his mom to heal his dad, she doesn't, as she seems lost, and with a single look to her shaking hands, Arthur knows something's up with her. Reynolds then pulls Arthur in close and tells him to take his mom and go back the way they came. He also mentions that his mom is pregnant and that he's relying on Arthur to protect her. Arthur grabs his sword and makes his way back, and everyone is dealing with their bandits, but an archer ends up shooting an arrow at his mom. Art locks in and attempts to parry the arrow. His sword is wooden basically. It just breaks, which leaves the bandit baffled on how Art managed to parry it. Art clocks there's meant to be 4 mages, but the twin horns are only fighting 3. The last mage conjures a huge water sphere attack. Art can only dodge it by himself, but knows his mom can't take the attack. So he ends up sacrificing himself while pushing his mom out of the way. But in a last-ditch effort to make sure the mage dies with him, he throws a knife with a mana string attached. So as he falls off the cliff, the mage comes down with him. So this chapter starts with a flashback to a time when King Grey wakes up and looks at all the W's he took as king. He thinks of it to be worthless compared to his time with his family in Catherine. Arthur wakes up to see food and water laid next to the remains of the mage he took out. He gobbles it down and then passes out due to fatigue. He then wakes up again and uses mana to force his body to move, and looks at where he fell from and is lost on how he even survived the fall. As he begins to move, he hears a voice and wonders who it might be. At first, he believes the voice to be coming from the corpse, though the voice assures him the corpse won't be reanimated. This assuring Art that this is not the 4th Great Ninja War. Art then begins to distrust the voice and bombards it with questions, and it tells him that only it knows how to get out of you. And then Art does change his demeanor to a more respectful one, as he just wants to make it back to his family at the end of the day. As Art drastically changes his demeanor, the voice seems amused by this. And then we get a gender reveal and tells Art to refer to her as a lady. The lady invades his mind, and gives him directions to her crib, and advises Art to leave immediately. As he makes his way, he ends up thinking why she only saved him, what sort of magic she used, and how could she have known they was even there while they were falling. He's interrupted by the sound of a stream and immediately takes off his clothes and dives in. The lady is once again amused by his carelessness and makes a comment on how tiny his wood is. Anyways, he ends up making it to her yard, and as he meets her face to face, fear overwhelms him. But he soon gets over this, as she says she'll make a dimensional rift to take him home. But it will take her some time, so she guides Art to some food, and they both end up sitting down and eating fruits. He asks her for her name, and she reveals that she is called Sylvia, and he asks all the questions he had on the walk to her yard. She ends up telling him that he's in the Beast Glades, next to the Kingdom of Elves Eleanor. As to why Sylvia saved him, she gave him 2 reasons. One was that she was moved by his courage, and the other that she was very lonely. Sylvia also informs Art that his friends and family are safe, which moves him to tears. Sylvia and Art spend a lot of time together, and Art begins to understand what kind of person Sylvia is. She seems kind, patient, like his mum, but scolds him when he's wrong, as one time he was expressing his hate towards the bandits, and thought to himself that he'd hunt them down, but Sylvia flicked his head, telling him not to let his heart be clouded by such vengeance, as it will corrupt him, and to learn from his misfortunes, as many will come. After this lecture, Sylvia teaches him to absorb mana while moving, a technique called mana rotation that humans can't use due to them awakening their cause blade. As Art practices for a couple weeks, he finally gets it, and in his excitement, he tells Sylvia But he finds out her wound is getting worse as she creates the dimensional rift to get him home, and is once again moved to tears as he finds out she's basically dying for him. Soon after, she reveals her true dragon form, and Art is in awe, but she has little time left to complete the rift. So she ends up making it to where the rift will take him close to humans, but not to his home. Suddenly, the rocks come flying from above, and someone tells Sylvia to come with him and hand him the egg. But Sylvia gives the egg to Arthur with something to seal the egg as well, like a feather, and entrusts him with something else as well, which you don't get to see now. You get to see it when this boy becomes past whack. She knocks him into the dimensional rift. She closes her eyes and accepts her fate. And with Art's final words to Sylvia being Grandma, Art then gets transported, and Deeps, that's the last time he's ever gonna see Sylvia, and reminisces on the times he had with her. He also realizes Sylvia treated him like her own blood and taught him the things he lacked in this world. Suddenly, Art hears her voice and comes to the conclusion Sylvia managed to leave him with a message and tells him he's too young to know the whole truth, but in time, it will all be revealed to him. And Sylvia also tells Art that she gave him her will, and then informs him that once his manacle reaches past the White Course stage, he'll hear from her again. And she tells him until then, she bids him farewell, King Quay. This meant she knew the entire time, and Bo was fooling no one. Art then begins to understand there's no point training for revenge, as it will only make this life the same as the last one. So he grits his teeth and moves forward, focusing on the task at hand, and realizes he's in Elshire Forest, the one that borders Eleanor, the kingdom of the elves. And he hears a scream from a little girl, and hears a loud smack, clocking that they're slave traders kidnapping a young elf. Art clocks he can't take the 4 slave traders by himself head on, so he waits and gathers strength. And when it's night, he distracts the wolves by chucking a stone, and it forces one of the men to go towards the wolves to shut him up. But Art sneaks up on the man, slits his throat. Art then takes the knife on the man and feeds him to the hungry wolves. He then waits for his partner to come check on him and then just assassinates the boy. Last two go look for their fallen partners due to their noise, and they end up getting caught. Art manages to immobilize one, and the other begins talking crazy, so you know that's the leader. And he ends up grabbing my boy, but Art figures out how to use fire magic and burns his hand. And when he burnt his hand, he also steals his knife, and before Bo can even react, he slits Bo's throat with straight ease. Art then turns his eyes to the one he immobilized, and Bo wasn't even that important, he just got off screen. It then cuts to Art stretching out his hand to the elf they kidnapped to tell her it's safe out. He then blindfolds the elf so that she doesn't see the straight carnage Bo unleashed. He removes it when he thinks they're far enough and plans to leave the elf, but turns out she's quite scared, so he feels bad and ends up going back to the body to loot their supplies. He also ends up finding the clothes they took from her and gives it back. He then asks for her name, and she tells him that it's Tessia Elrith. And from then on, they get to chopping it up. Some time passes and their journey ends up slowing due to Art's court acting up after Sylvia gave him her will. But despite all this, they keep moving forward. Tessia ends up touching the trees frantically, and Art seems confused until she shouts, "We're here!" And they end up getting flung through a teleportation gate. And immediately, they're surrounded by a dozen soldiers. The king and queen of the kingdom of Eleanor spawn out of nowhere and thank Art for bringing her home, and subtly orders Art to come to their house and explain everything that happened. He ends up talking to the king, the queen, and the grandpa. He explains everything in a way where it's a half-truth and doesn't mention Sylvia or anything, and tells him the truth about the slave traders capturing Tess, and also tells him he eliminated them, which they don't believe, but he actually doesn't care at all and is genuinely just trying to get back home. The king offers him hospitality and an escorted trip back home due to him getting his daughter back safe and sound. After this, Art takes a shower and heads into his room and is met with a headbutt from Tessia, and she lists a bunch of complaints she has of the way Art's been moving. But he explains to her she should have mentioned her dad and mum was the king and queen of Eleanor. They then end up exploring the castle, and Tessia takes him to her favourite spot. And as she's explaining why she likes the place, a knife is thrown at her, Art notices and grabs the knife and pounces towards the attacker. You know my boy Art gets active. Turns out it was her grandpa, Villian Ellith. Turns out he was just testing Art. He tosses him a sword and they just get straight to it. No words needed. Them boys get straight to work. And it's clear Villian's cold with the sword, as the first thing Art says when they fight is just strong. Like the word strong. He just gets hit one time. What comes to his mind is strong. That's when you know he felt that hit. He blocks it, switches his stance, and manages to find an opening by spinning in the air like some Beyblade and grazing his forehead. Villian then asks Art to become his disciple and learn under him, as he notices that his core can't hack the will he has, and at the moment is doing more harm than good to his core. He explains to Art that he's a beast tamer, and he explains that the power from his beast will is too potent for his immature body to handle. If not controlled, the power he obtained would end him from the inside out. Art then wakes up to Tessia bugging him, and she tells him that he's staying because Villian says so. And Art said maybe, and they end up making their way over to their college, and he overhears a conversation between Villian and the king about the fact that Art's staying in the Elven Kingdom. And since Villian is the father of the king, he gets his way and tells everyone that Art is his disciple. Art looks at this and sees that Villian is dependable and a man of his word, so he softens up to him, even calling him Gramps. Villian thanks Art for taking care of his granddaughter and being a little one, cause all Tessie had been seeing is fakes, which caused her to become closed off until she met Art. Fast forward, and they end up meeting Linya, the sister of Villian. Turns out she's a deviant that can help him contact his parents, so he stares at a bucket of water and focuses on their image. He ends up communicating to them telepathically and tells them that he's alive and safe and that he's in the kingdom of Eleanor with the elves. And he also tells his parents that he has an illness that needs to be treated, so it may be some time until he can come back. Reynolds and Alice are overjoyed by this news and tears just come streaming down their face. This chapter starts off with an apology from the king and queen, and they let Art and Tessie explore the town. And we get introduced to the real MC, my goat, Phaelus Ivsar II. Upon hearing of the great Phaelus Ivsar II, Art sarcastically acknowledges his greatness. But the great Phaelus Ivsar II sees through this and has no choice but to invoke the sacred door, only to let Art win in one shot. Why? Perhaps. I have no clue why he done that. I know he could have won that though. Just look at the boy. They end up exploring and having fun, and at the end of the day, they find themselves on a balcony, and Tessie asks Art if he's nervous to start training, but Art's mad excited to see what the future has in store for him. This then cuts into a 3-year time skip, where Tess and Art are in a lesson with Villian, who's teaching them about magic and the race's affinity towards him. Villian then tries to activate Art's beast will, but since the beast will was so strong, they all get flung back and Art gets knocked out. Villian then asks where he got that beast will from, and then he tells him it's a dragon, and he's flabbergasted. He then goes to Art's room and tells him that instead of 2 years, he'll be leaving in 4 months. Villian then goes to Tess to break the news to her. And then we see the egg Sylvia gave him hatches, and a cute little dragon pops out. It then chomps his hand, and they now can share thoughts and feelings telepathically. He then names her Sylvie after her mum and goes to bed only to be woken up by Tess grabbing Sylvie and telling Art how cute she is. They go downstairs and Tess calls for Villian. And Villian's shocked to see a dragon just chilling on top of Art's head, and Art explains the whole thing to Villian. And then Villian does a quick flex with his integrate phase of his beast will and speed blitzes Art. Then him and Art just get straight to it. Unfortunately, that fight was off-screen, and then it cuts to him training and chilling for 4 months. Until the day of Art's departure finally comes. Tess is sad, and Villian gives him the Elith house quest on a chain. Art leaves and gets in the carriage to meet my GOAT, Phaelus Ivsar II, or better known as Feifei, and they get to chopping it up. And soon after, they arrive at Zara City. Since I didn't mention it before, I'm gonna mention it now. The city I'm talking about is a floating city. Don't ask me how it's a floating city. I do not know. but it's just a floating city. So Art finally made it to Zalus. He's outside his door. He's about to see his mom and dad for the first time in 3 whole years. It's been a long 3 years. He's learned a lot. And yeah, man, we're gonna have to end this part now, just because the video's getting way too long. But if you want another part, just shout me. Hopefully this does well. If you like the video, like the video. If you enjoyed the content, subscribe. And yeah, there's a loss. Man's tired.